My name is Dwight C. McManus. I live in Weatherford, Texas. I was drafted right out of high school, armored infantry.
Okay.
Those armored people, they have tanks and they have those half tracks. A half track is kind of like a 2.5 ton with tracks on the back of it. So we rode in that. We had a lot of firepower. When we opened up on those Germans, they knew they'd been hit. Went to basic training in Mineral Wells, Texas, and training was cut short because of the Battle of the Bulge, and we were shipped over on the Queen Mary, 21,000 of us, and landed in Southampton, England, and from there over to Marseille, France, and joined my outfit in Belgium, and we fought the Germans across Germany, across the Rhine River, and to within 70 miles of Berlin. The first man I saw killed was an American. He had a radio on his back, and the artillery was coming in too low, and he was trying to get him to raise it, and he got killed. And from there on, we saw a lot of people. We went to a place called Dorsten, where this guy was killed, and then the next battle we went to was Una, and the Germans were pretty strong there, and they were firing pretty strong at us. And we finally got back behind a big dam and went over the top and went up on the firepower we had was 2 machine guns on that half track and a 50 caliber machine gun next to us. And we opened up fire and kept walking. And we got into that town. There was a lot of dead people. Nobody knows who killed who. But pretty soon the white flag started rolling out the windows and people gave up. And then we went on across the Rhine River, had some firing at us as we crossed the river. One of my guys that used to stand guard with me at night after we'd take a town, they'd put people out on guard. The guy that used to stand guard with me got hit, killed him. Went on through the town, and there's a lot of dead German soldiers in these towns. So we got all the way up to and landed at 70 miles from Berlin, and that's where my battles ended. We were told to hold up and allow the Russians to take Berlin. They did, and May the 8th, 1945, we celebrated VE Day in Europe.
Throughout the world, throngs of people hailed the end of the war in Europe. It is 5 years and more since Hitler marched into Poland. Years full of suffering and death and sacrifice. Now the war against Germany is won. President Truman announced the official surrender.
This is a solemn but glorious hour. I wish that Franklin D. Roosevelt had lived to see this day. General Eisenhower informs me that the forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations. The flags of freedom fly all over Europe.
And I went on from there to Czechoslovakia, and a few days later we came out on orders to go back to the States for a 30-day leave en route to the Pacific, because we didn't have enough points. A lot of the guys had been there longer. The guys that had less points was going to the Pacific. So I went home and went back to the, well, first of all, we were shipped to Le Havre, France, where we were going to board the Queen Mary to go home. We were in tents waiting to get on the Queen Mary again, and I heard some hollering down below us. A bunch of tents were all lined up. Each tent, a guy was going in there handing out bulletins. As they came on up to us, he came in, passed out a bulletin, said we dropped the atomic bomb on Japan and the war was over.
The day of days for America and her allies.
Crowds before the White House await the announcement from the President that the Japs have surrendered unconditionally.
I have received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government in reply to the message forwarded to that government by the Secretary of State on August 11th. I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan. In the reply, there is no qualification.
So we thought we would be going back to our outfits to let those guys who've been here longer go home. Well, they said it's too late. We've already got you booked on the Queen Mary, and you're going home. So we went home. We were the first military people to get home. We were met in New York by a big band, Tommy Dorsey, the Andrews sisters, the whole work. I couldn't believe it, you know. I was so happy to be home, and we got off the boat, and the Red Cross was there with fresh milk, which we hadn't seen since we left the States. They were there with donuts and all those goodies like that, and just praising us and thanking us for what we've done, appreciating people that sacrificed for their country. And I went home and decided to stay in the Army. 5 years later, I found myself on orders to Korea, so I went to Korea. And this time I didn't have to go to the battles. I stayed behind in a Corps headquarters. Spent a year there, transferred to Japan, brought my family over to Japan, spent 3 years there, and then went back to the States, moved around different places, and finally came out on orders for Germany. Went to Germany, took my family with me. We stayed 3 years, had a wonderful time. Came back to El Paso, Texas, stayed 3 years, was coming out on orders again for another war, the Vietnam War. And I knew I'd survived 2 wars, and the third one might be too many. So I was on those orders, so I slipped my retirement papers in ahead of it and retired there in El Paso, Texas, and moved to Weatherford, Texas. Well, I love my country. It's like most people in the military do. We were taught to stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. We were taught to salute the flag when they sing the national anthem, and be respectful of our country, because it's always been good to us. And we take a vow that we will fight for our country to death if necessary. It's kind of like your family. If you have a family, you would probably fight to the death for them. So it's the same way I feel about the country. And in Weatherford, Texas, I retired again after working with the Army, and I started training and boarding and showing horses. If a person just retires and sits down, he won't last long. You got to work, you got to do something that you enjoy. And this is the only horse I own now, and he's my buddy. 37 years showing, boarding, training horses. Something I enjoyed very much. That's mostly my story.